There's an ancient story that is recorded by one of the Roman writers about a friendship between two men. One of these men was condemned to die. He wanted to go and visit his family before his death, but he promised to come back and face his death. They said, that'll be all right, but you'll have to have someone who will stand in your stead. So if you don't show up, we will execute the other person. Well, he agreed to that. And this fellow's name was Damien and Pythias. And so Pythias moved on out to see his family. He visited with his family. And Damien was the stand-in for the execution. The day of the execution came, and Pythias had not shown up. Instead, Pythias delayed, and they were just getting ready to kill the other man. Right at the last minute, the real accused man showed up. And they embraced each other, and they got ready to execute the so-called guilty man. Instead, the governor intervened because he was going to witness this execution, and he intervened and he said, I can't imagine this kind of a friendship. And he said, I need a friend. I would like to be a part of this close friendship that the two of you enjoy with each other. Well, we think of friend from the point of view of secular things, I guess, most of the time. The Bible says some interesting things about friends, particularly in the book of Proverbs, and a few also from the book of Ecclesiastes and the book of Psalms. I have a list of some of these things. Not a very long list, but just a few passages and just a comment or two on these few passages is all we'll do tonight. What are friends like? Well, what is it to be a friend? What is it to have a friend? The Bible says a lot about this. Jesus said, you are my friends. I can't imagine anything that would be more heartwarming to his apostles than to have the Son of God say, you are my friend. We have this song, what a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. The friendship of Jesus is not like the friendship that you and I have. Christ can be with us all the time. I preached a sermon one time about a tribute to a friend. Maybe you remember that. It was quite a long while ago. This was a friend that I found when I was just a little boy. My parents introduced me to him. And I went ahead and thought along the line of this friendship and how it matured and how it developed. And everywhere I went, he would go with me. Sometime I would probably go to some places that I wish he wouldn't go, but he was always there. And this song expresses the idea very, very well. What is a friend, though? Is a friend one who approves of everything that I do? No, that's not a very good friend. Is a friend a person who shows up when I need? Well, that might not be a very good friend either. A friend of mine that I was in the Merchant Marine with, he had a very secular idea of what a friend was. He said, a real friend is a man that I can go to and say, I need $100. That was a lot of money in those days. I need $100, but he doesn't tell what he needs the $100 for. But his friend gives him the $100, no questions asked. I don't think that's a particularly good definition of a friend. What is the idea of a friend? Well, Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times. I can be pretty obnoxious sometimes. I don't like to say that, but other people say it. I can be pretty obnoxious. A friend is not one who disappears during these times when I'm such a terrible guy. But a friend loves, Proverbs says, at all times. And then in the 18th chapter of Proverbs and 24th verse, there's a very interesting statement here. A man of many companions may come to ruin. Isn't that something? That's the first part of this verse. A man of many companions may come to ruin. It may be that I have too many friends, quote unquote friends. It may be that there are so many people that I call friends that it tends to get me into trouble. So a man of many companions may come to ruin. I'm glad he didn't stop there. He says, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Some people that I know of have experienced that very thing. They have found out that just the companions of their lives are not really their true friends. They're not the people who stick with them through thick and thin. One of the qualifications that I think of a good marriage is that the husband and wife not only are husband and wife, they're not only mother and father, but they're really good friends. They're good friends from the point of view of not family obligations, not husband-wife responsibilities, but just simply the relationship of one human being to another on a friendship basis. I guess that probably all of you know of my friendship with Marilyn Mish, and my friendship also with Ron Tyler. There are very different types of friendships, and yet they are both so valuable to me as friends. Why? Because each one of them sticks with me. They don't agree with me all the time. As a matter of fact, we may have a number of different disagreements. But the disagreements, I was talking to Ron just the other day, said, Ron, you and I disagree about a number of things theologically, but it doesn't separate us. As long as I agree with somebody, they're my friend. When I disagree with them, I'm cut off. No, that's not the kind of friendship that the Bible really talks about. And then over in the 27th chapter of Proverbs and the 6th verse, listen to this one. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies it kisses. Isn't that interesting? Wounds from a friend can be trusted. Sometimes a friend has to tell his friend, this is wrong. This is bad. You have behaved unseemly. You are to blame. And with some people, of course, as soon as we disagree, as soon as he condemns what I've done, the friendship is broken. But here in this 27th chapter of Proverbs, he says, the wounds of a friend can be trusted. Isn't it good to think that we have a friend who is honest enough with us, who is frank with us, who loves us enough to say, this is something you're doing that's really bad. Here is something that needs to be corrected. Now, husbands and wives, the reason I said they ought to be good friends, husbands and wives can have husband-wife arguments. But the friendship between a husband and wife also helps to keep them together because of this very type of thing. The wounds of a friend. The wounds of a friend can be trusted. So when my friend tells me something that I don't like to hear, something that hurts me, I know because he's my friend that he's doing this for my good. Jesus, called his disciples his friends. A number of times, though, Jesus really got on to his friends. They were talking about who is the greatest, who's going to sit by his side and when he comes into his kingdom and all this sort of thing. And he denounced that idea. Some people might have said, well, if that's the way he feels about it, you know, he's not a friend of mine. No, but he told the truth. And so Proverbs says here, the wounds of a friend can be trusted. The other side of that, this is antithetic parallelism, it's called, where something positive is stated and then something negative is stated in the right after it. And so it's called antithetic parallelism. Wounds of a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Kisses all through history have been an indication of some kind of close relationship or the intent of a close relationship. They have come to be formalized now, and in some cultures, when a person is introduced to something like that, the person introducing him will kiss that individual on both cheeks. This is done a great deal in the Middle East. When I was in Jerusalem one time, I met a man up on the Mount of Olives, as a matter of fact. I met a man who was an Arab, and we talked for a while. And when we parted, first time I'd seen the fellow, but when we parted, he kissed me on both cheeks. That's just part of the culture of these people. But I think this idea of Proverbs 27:6 here is that sometime people who call themselves our friends, they compliment us. Oh, you are the greatest at this. You are the finest that I've ever seen. You're the best looking, and you know, I could pick you out of a crowd anywhere as being the most outstanding person, and all of these things. But when a difficulty comes, these people vanish. And so he says, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Sometimes people want to flatter us, make us feel good, get something from us. No, that's not friendship. In the ninth verse of the same chapter, perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of one's friends springs from his earnest counsel. We need friends that we can confide in, friends that we can open our hearts to, and know that that friend will listen but will not judge us. You see, when I talk with a friend about problems that I have, about weaknesses that I have, about temptations that I have, I am asking him to listen to me. I need help. A friend is a good listener. What is a friend? He's a good listener, and sometimes he might give me advice. But one of the important things is he's a listener. One of the great things that psychiatrists and clinical psychologists do is to get you to pay, what, $100, $125 an hour, something like that, to listen to you. Listen to you. Oh, yes, they have skills. There's certainly no doubt about that. They have skills and all of this sort of thing. But have you ever thought of prayer from this point of view? God is a great listener. He's a great listener. But, you know, if I really have a problem and I go to Scott and I say, Scott, I have this problem, and I begin talking about the problem just indirectly, Scott never gets an idea of what my problem is. He just knows I have a problem. And finally, Scott says to me, okay, Jack, tell me exactly what the problem is. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Well, you know, I'll never solve my problem that way. A friend is a person that you can confide in, that you know that person is willing to listen to you, and though you tell that person some of the terrible things in your mind, in your heart, in your activity, and so forth, you know that that person still will stand by you. That's part of what it is to be a friend. Now, an interesting thing to me is God already knows. He already knows what is in my heart, and yet a lot of times somehow or another, I'm uncomfortable in telling God what a bad guy I am, and the thoughts that I have, and the temptations that I have. But He already knows those things. But it's so cleansing to us to be able to talk to someone who is a good, close friend, and know that that person will love us just as much or more after it's all over. I remember talking to an individual one time. He came down to my house one Sunday afternoon, and he said, "Jack, it's something you said in your sermon that really, really got to me." And he said, "I need to tell you something about myself." This fellow's name, I'll tell you his name. His name was Billy Stone. Billy doesn't live anywhere near here at all, way down in South Florida. Well, Billy began telling me something about some temptations that he had. It took a lot of courage for Billy Stone to do that. I thought that Billy Stone was one of the finest men that I had ever seen, that I had ever known. He and his wife were so devoted in so many ways. And then he spilled all this out about, these are temptations that I had. And I don't remember exactly what it was that he said, but it was something along the line, "Now that you know more about me, I'm sure you don't like me anymore." I said, "Billy, you're brave enough to say these are my temptations. Billy, I admire you for that." The thing is, you see, I have temptations, he has temptations, and we all have temptations. And I could have said, "Oh, I didn't know you were that kind of person. I didn't know that you would ever be tempted with that." And then I'm thinking to myself, you know, he's been doing this and this and this at church, and he ought not to be doing these things. He ought instead to just be in the background. No, not that at all. Not that at all. Because, you see, we are all faced with temptation. And it makes no difference at all whether somebody else knows about that. It helps us many times to find out that there's an individual that I can talk to. Here's an individual that I can say the things that are on my heart, and he is a friend, and he's not going to condemn. He's going to try to help. Well, in this 9th verse of chapter 27, he says, "The pleasantness of one's friend springs from his earnest counsel." Yes, that person that I talk to, now he knows more about how to relate to me. Oh no, I didn't know that Billy Stone had these temptations and so forth, but that's all right. That's okay. He didn't know the temptations that I had, and that's okay. He was brave enough to say, "I need help with this, Jack." And just to find somebody that he felt that he could talk to about his temptations. He saw this as the framework of true friendship. He lived right down the street from me, and he was one of the best friends that I had while I lived in Tampa, Florida. Well, this from one's friendship springs earnest counsel. No, he didn't ask for a whole lot of advice. What he asked for is, "Jack, lend your ear to me for a while. Let me say something to you. Let me talk to you about what's burdening my heart." And that's part of what it is to be a good friend. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 10 talks about the idea of picking you up when you fall. Pity the one who has no one to help him. Here's a person who, when he spiritually falls, not physically, but when he spiritually falls, and people say, "Oh, I didn't know he was like that." And so we have nothing to do with him. But here in Ecclesiastes, he says, it's so wonderful to reach down and pick that person up. Pity the man who doesn't have someone to reach down and pick him up. Let me say this. Every one of us, at one time or another, has been in the depths of despair, and somebody has come along and has reached down and picked us up, put us back on our feet. No, they didn't say, "Oh, Jack, that's all right. You know, you're not a bad person. That's okay." No. They just showed compassion and reaching down to pick me up. How often do I do that? How often do I do that with people? Or how often do I say, "Oh, I didn't know you were that kind. I'm really disappointed in you. You're not what I thought you were." When all the time, you see, the problem is that I'm just as bad as he is. I remember when Billy Stone left my house, I said, you know, I said to my wife, I said, you know, here's a man who was brave enough, courageous enough, who wanted to improve his life enough that he came face to face with some temptations that he had, and he said basically, "I need some help." And then I thought about myself. How much do I have in my life that is ugly, is bad, is mean, or whatever else you want to say about it? How much of that is in my life, and I just brush it under the carpet? I don't talk about it. I don't tell anybody about it. I act as if it doesn't exist. Here was a man who said, "I've got the problem. I need some help." And that happened back in 1956. I've never forgotten it. That's quite a while ago, folks. 1956. I've never forgotten that. Why? Because this man, this friend of mine, was such a great inspiration to me with his courage, with his willingness to say, "I need your help." No, he didn't need a psychologist. He didn't need a psychiatrist. He just needed a friend. That's really what he needed. Now, how can I be a friend? How can I be the kind of person that another individual will confide in me? No, not by hanging out a shingle and saying, "You can talk to me," but by learning to be compassionate people, learning to show people, not display, by the way, but show people in the way that I live, that I am a person. I am a human being. I have the same kind of faults that you have, and I am a person who can be approached. Instead, sometimes, "Oh, I'm a Christian. I go to church every Sunday. I go twice every Sunday. And I study and I read, so I'm better than you." A fellow told me not long ago, he said, "You know, I used to go to a big mega church, and I heard a whole lot of things about, personality development and self-esteem, and I heard about how to be successful," and said, "You know, all of these things were very, very appealing, but I never heard Bible." I never heard the Bible. And he said, "You know, when I left that church, some people came to me and said, 'Oh, you think you're better than the rest of us now, is that right?' I said, 'No, that isn't it at all. I'm simply trying to be the best person I can be.'" So, as we associate with other people, how do we present ourselves? Do we present ourselves as, "I'm a holy person. I'm a good person. You're not very good. I'm better than you are because I go to church"? Or am I presenting myself to people as, "I'm a person of compassion. I'm a person of understanding. I'm a person to whom you can talk. I'm a person who will help you carry your load." It isn't something that we'll learn to do tomorrow, but it is something that we'll learn to do if we work on it quite constantly. And then there are some great friendships in the Bible that are very interesting to me. David and Jonathan. This is such a strange friendship in some ways. Jonathan, you see, was the son of the king. David was next in line to be the king, and he would end up displacing the dynasty of Saul. Now, so my best friend is the fellow who is going to be cheating me out of being the next king. Basically, that's what it said. Jonathan could have said to himself, wait a minute, when my father dies, I'm supposed to become king, and now you, David, are saying you're going to be king when Saul dies because God has chosen you. There could have been a great clash here, couldn't there? Just a very meaningful clash. But it goes down as one of the greatest friendships that we have anywhere in the entire Bible. And when Jonathan died, Jonathan was killed in battle. And when Jonathan died, David wrote a beautiful and wonderful eulogy that showed something about how great his love for that friend was. And this is the type of thing, this is the type of friendship that Christians need to develop with each other and to develop with the outside world. Jesus was referred to as the friend of sinners. How would you like for people to say about you, he's a friend of sinners? He's a friend of the people that we don't like. He's a friend of the publicans, and they're terrible people. Well, the whole idea of being a friend is not the idea that you're my friend if you do what I like. You're my friend as long as you please me. No, the friendship of David and Jonathan, it went over that, and it said, you are a valuable person. You are a valuable person to me. You are a part of me. And so this friendship was so exemplary in the New Testament. And then I think an unusual one is where Abraham is called the friend of God. This to me is a little bit on the strange side, and yet, if I may do so, let's rob God of his divinity for just a minute and look at God as an individual. Yes, he's high, he's far above us. I don't know how we can illustrate this, but let's just say the most powerful man in the world, the most powerful woman in the world. I approach that person. I need that person. And that person says, oh, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I've got a lot of things to take care of. I have a lot of things to do. No, God is never too busy for me. Maybe I'm too busy for him. Maybe I'm too busy just doing things that please me or that I want to do. And the first thing you know, I forget about God being my friend, Christ being my friend. There's one more friendship that I want to mention to you. Paul and Timothy. Paul was an older man. Timothy was just a young man. You know, with true friendships, a lot of times age doesn't make any difference. Oh, I might not enjoy the same things that somebody else enjoys. One of the greatest compliments that my grandchildren ever paid to me was the idea that they felt like that I mixed right in with them. I didn't try. I loved them, you know, but I just kind of mixed right in with them. And they told me a number of the cousins used to get together, and they had a thing that they called the Burching. And they just got together and had dinner together, potluck, and they sat around and talked and things like this. And I said, yeah, what do you guys talk about? And one of them said, Grandpa, we talk about you a lot. And then he went on and told me some of the things they said. Nothing warmed my heart the way that did, because age is not what made the difference. My word, I'm way, way older than they are, but age didn't make the difference. What made the difference was the love that we had for each other. And in friendships, the value of the friendship comes primarily from how much love I insert into that friendship. I've got a little statement down here. Friendship begets friendship. Begin with a pleasant personality. What are you like as an individual? What about your own personality? Are you a complainer? If you're a complainer, you probably are not going to have very many really close friends. People don't like to just listen to complaints all the time. They don't mind listening to problems. But when it's just gripe, 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 no, people don't like that. But when it's problems and problems, people can relate to that, because people are saying, well, I understand that, because sometimes I have that same problem. I read this a good little while back. A smile costs nothing, but it creates much. It enriches those who receive it without impoverishing those who give it. It happened in a flash, and the memory of it sometime lasts forever. None are so rich that they can get along without it, and none are so poor that what they can engage in the riches of its benefits. It creates happiness in the home. It fosters goodwill in business. And it is the countersign of friends. It is rest for the weary. It's daylight for the discouraged. It is sunshine to the sad. And it's nature's best antidote in trouble. A smile. A smile usually is something that takes place between friends. Not necessarily. Let me rephrase that a little bit. Friends find that smiles are easy between them. Ron Tyler and I have we have a great friendship, and we have a little restaurant there in Camarillo. It's just a little shotgun thing. It's about 3 or 4 rows back and about as long as these rows, just a little place. We know the waitresses, we know the cook who stands right there, and we kid with them and everything. But when we first started going in there, they didn't know us, but we sat there and we talked with each other and we laughed and everything, and we found out later that even though they didn't know our names, they said, "These are the happy ones." How do you come over? How do you come over to other people? As a happy one or as a pessimist? Some people can find something wrong with everything under the sun, and other people see the bright and the optimistic side of all of these things. There's an old story that I'm going to tell you, and we'll conclude with this. There's an old story about an optimist boy and a pessimist boy. They were twins. They were twin brothers. Well, it seemed like that the optimist just was over-optimistic, and the pessimist was overly pessimistic. And so at Christmas time, the mother and father decided, we're going to level the field here, you know. What are we going to do? The pessimist, we're going to give him everything under the sun. And with the optimist, we're not going to do that. Here's what they did. Bought an electric train for this little boy. They bought him a brand new bicycle. They brought him new clothes. They brought him all of the toys you can think of. And, well, Christmas morning came, they came down the stairs, and they went in there. The pessimist was first. And he looked at it and he said, well, so that, you know, that bicycle it's not the best kind. All those toys, you know, you get tired of that kind of stuff. And this electric train, he says, I probably won't even get to play with it because Dad will be playing with it all the time. And you know, he saw something faulty about everything there. And about that time, the pessimist, the optimist came down. In his corner of the room, there was just a paper bag. And he picked up the paper bag, very excited, and he looked in there, and in the paper bag was just some grass, some hay. And he looked at the paper bag, he said, horse feed, there's got to be a horse around here somewhere. Well, the whole idea is that the way we respond to people, the way we respond to individual situations, that says a lot about what we are as friends. Let's learn to be optimistic. By being optimistic, we can see the bright side of things. I think that Paul must have been one of the most optimistic people who ever lived. He suffered a lot. He was persecuted. He talks about the fact that he was shipwrecked. This is before the big shipwreck in the last part of the Acts. He was shipwrecked. He was put in jail. He was beaten up. His countrymen forsook him. The people that he carried the gospel to, they forsook him. All kinds of bad things happened to him. And he said, besides that, I'm just so worried about the churches and so forth. Well, this man Paul, when he came to the end of his life, he says, I fought the good fight. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. And so the whole idea was that through all of these things, Paul saw the brightness, the wonder, the beauty of the presence of Christ. Friendship is a very, very important thing for each one of us. And when we learn to be good friends, we'll find that people will learn to be our friends. If you're not a Christian tonight and you want to become a child of God, the invitation song as we sing is sung especially with you in mind, and we invite you to come. Let's stand together, please.